This is the residual relay, long-range signal, overnight band, channel 4, open frequency. You are receiving this broadcast from the Continuity Office Regional Monitoring Station at Marchfeld, operating under Standard Observational Authority. The time is 02:14. My name is Operator Ellison. I am the assigned overnight signal coordinator for Sectors 3 through 6, Western Monitoring Arc. I have held this post for 11 years. I am telling you that because I want you to understand that what I am about to communicate did not begin with panic. It did not begin with confusion. It began with a question that should have had an answer. And then it didn't. I will be reading from verified field reports, institutional communications, and my own operational log. Some of what follows has been confirmed by multiple sources. Some has not. Where confirmation is absent, I will say so. Where I do not understand something, I will say that too. I am going to begin with the Grey Hollow Observatory Nightly Stellar Census, which is where the first formal notation was entered. Stand by. At 21:47 on the evening in question, the Grey Hollow Observatory submitted its routine nightly census to the Continuity Office Northern Stellar Monitoring Desk. This census is conducted every clear evening. It is one of the oldest continuous observational records in the network, predating the Continuity Office itself by approximately 40 years. The census was originally maintained by the Grey Hollow Astronomical Society before their integration into the National Monitoring Framework in 1961. The census is simple. It is a positional check of all cataloged visible stellar objects within a defined observational window. The window covers a region of sky approximately 22 degrees wide, centered on the northern meridian. It is not the entire sky. It is not intended to be. It is one window, observed consistently, every clear night, for over a century. The census submitted at 21:47 contained a single annotation. I will read the annotation exactly as it was received. 11 cataloged objects within the standard window are not visible this evening. Absence confirmed by 3 independent observers using separate instruments. Objects are not occluded. Objects are not below the horizon. Objects are cataloged as visible magnitude and should be observable under current atmospheric conditions. No instrumental fault detected. No atmospheric obstruction detected. Census is submitted with 11 unresolved absences. End of annotation. The 11 objects were listed by their catalog designations, which I will not read in full. What matters is that the observatory provided their standard magnitudes, their expected positions, and their observational history. Several of these stars had appeared in every single Grey Hollow census for over 90 years. One had appeared in every census since the program began. The annotation was flagged by the Northern Stellar Monitoring Desk at 22:03 and forwarded to the Continuity Office Overnight Coordination Bureau. At the time, it was categorized as a Priority 3 observational discrepancy. I want to be clear about what that means. A Priority 3 classification indicates that the discrepancy is likely attributable to equipment error, atmospheric interference, or observer fatigue. And that resolution is expected within 24 hours without intervention. This was considered routine. Stand by. At 22:31, the Overnight Coordination Bureau contacted 3 additional observational sites and requested independent confirmation. This is standard procedure for any stellar census discrepancy involving more than 2 objects. The 3 sites contacted were Halford Point Observatory, Dunmore Ridge Station, and the Aldrich Point Replacement Facility, which, as some of you may know, was rebuilt 14 months ago, following the events documented in a previous broadcast. Halford Point responded at 22:48. Their report confirmed 9 of the 11 absences. 2 objects fell outside their observational window and could not be checked. Dunmore Ridge responded at 23:02. They confirmed all 11 absences. The Aldrich Point Replacement Facility responded at 23:11. They confirmed all 11 absences and added a note. I will read the note. Confirming 11 absences as described, additionally noting that our automated tracking system did not flag these absences. The system shows all 11 objects as present nominal. Manual inspection contradicts automated status. We are investigating the tracking discrepancy. At 23:14, the Overnight Coordination Bureau upgraded the classification to Priority 2, Multi-Site Confirmed Observational Anomaly. At this point, I was notified. I want to pause here and explain something about the way this kind of report is received by someone in my position. Stars do not disappear. I understand that statement sounds obvious, but I want you to hold it clearly in your mind, because everything that follows depends on your understanding that the people involved in this event are not people who are easily confused by the night sky. These are career observational professionals. They have seen atmospheric distortion. They have seen instrument failure. They have seen satellite interference, light pollution migration, and every other prosaic explanation you might currently be assembling. 11 stars were not visible. 4 independent sites confirmed it, and 1 automated tracking system insisted they were still there. That is where we were at 23:14. Stand by. At 23:30, the Continuity Office issued a formal request through the Stellar Monitoring Desk for expanded coverage. This request went to every operational observatory and monitoring station in sectors 1 through 9. I want to note that this is unusual, not unprecedented. Expanded coverage requests are issued several times per year for various reasons, but the speed of this request was notable. 30 minutes from first annotation to network-wide request. The duty coordinator at the Overnight Bureau, whose name is Hargrove, told me directly that the Aldrich Point tracking discrepancy was what accelerated the timeline. The absences alone might have waited until morning. The fact that an automated system disagreed with human observation that moved faster. By 0:15, 14 additional sites had responded. I will summarize the results. All 14 confirmed the 11 absences. All 14 reported that their own automated tracking systems showed the 11 objects as present. Let me say that differently. Every human observer who looked at the sky confirmed that 11 stars were missing. Every automated system monitoring the same region of sky reported that 11 stars were still there. At 0:22, the classification was upgraded to Priority 1, Confirmed Multi-Sector Anomaly, Instrumental Observational Conflict. At 0:25, Coordinator Hargrove opened a dedicated communication channel for the event. At 0:27, the Continuity Office Archival Division was contacted and asked to search for precedent. At 0:30, I began this broadcast. I'm going to read from the next series of reports in the order they were received, because the order matters. At 0034, Gray Hollow Observatory submitted a supplementary observation. I will read it directly. Supplementary to Census Annotation 4471. The 11 absent objects share no common spatial grouping. They are distributed across the full width of the observational window. 6 are within 3 degrees of other catalogued objects that remain visible and unaffected. There is no apparent geometric, magnitude-based, or spectral pattern linking the 11. We have checked repeatedly. At 0:41, Dunmore Ridge submitted an additional report. We have expanded our observation beyond the standard Gray Hollow window. Preliminary sweep of an additional 40 degrees of sky in all directions from the window boundary. No further absences detected at this time. The 11 missing objects appear to be the only affected stars within our observable range. At 0:52, a report arrived from a site that had not been part of the original request. This was the Fenimore Basin Long-Range Monitoring Post, Sector 8, which operates primarily as a signals intelligence station, but maintains a secondary astronomical observation capability. Their report read as follows. Fenimore Basin confirming 11 stellar absences as described in the network alert. We are additionally reporting the following. Spectrographic analysis of the positions where the 11 objects should be visible shows normal background readings. There is no absorption. There is no occlusion signature. There is no anomalous emission. The positions read as empty in the same way that any unoccupied region of sky reads as empty. It is not that something is blocking the light. The light is not there. I remember reading that report and setting it down on my desk, and then picking it up and reading it again. The light is not there, not blocked, not absorbed, not redirected. Absent. Stand by. At 1:05, the Continuity Office Archival Division responded to the precedent search request. I will read their response in full. Archival Division to Overnight Coordination Bureau. Reference. Priority 1, Stellar Absence Event. Precedent search complete. No direct precedent found for simultaneous multi-object stellar absence with instrumental observational conflict. Closest partial matches follow. 1. CO-OBS-1923-GH. Gray Hollow Observatory reported a single stellar absence lasting 4 hours, resolved without explanation. Object returned to visibility at original magnitude. No instrumental conflict noted. File closed, unresolved. 2. CO-OBS-1954-DP, Dunmore Point. Now Dunmore Ridge reported apparent magnitude fluctuation across 7 objects over 2 weeks. Investigation concluded atmospheric distortion. File closed. 3. CO-OBS-1971-restricted. The third entry was marked restricted. The full text of the Archival Division's note on this entry reads, File CO-OBS-1971-restricted is cataloged, but access requires authorization from the Continuity Office Director or designated senior authority. Summary not available at current clearance level. File title only. Sustained non-visibility event classification. Pending. File has not been accessed since 1974. Coordinator Hargrove requested access elevation at 1:09. As of the time of this broadcast, no response has been received. I will return to that when I have more information. At 1:12, a new development. Halford Point Observatory submitted an urgent supplementary report. I am reading from the original. Halford Point to Coordination Channel. Urgent. We have completed a full sky survey using our wide field imaging system. The survey was initiated to determine whether additional absences exist beyond the Gray Hollow window. Result: no additional absences detected in any other region of the sky. However, during the survey, we captured high-resolution imagery of the 11 absence positions. At standard magnification, the positions appear empty, consistent with all previous reports. At maximum magnification, and I want to be clear that we repeated this process 4 times. With independent calibration, the positions are not empty. There is something at each position. It is not a star. It is not any cataloged object type. It is not an artifact of the imaging system. We have confirmed this through multiple independent exposures. At each of the 11 positions, there is a very small, very faint region that is darker than the surrounding sky. I understand how that reads. I want to clarify. The background sky between stars is not perfectly black. It has a measurable ambient brightness from accumulated distant light, atmospheric scatter, and other sources. These 11 positions are measurably darker than that background. They are not simply absent stars. They are locations where less light exists than should be present even without a star there. We do not have a classification for this. Requesting guidance. I am going to stop reading reports for a moment. I need to communicate something about what it is like to receive this kind of information at 1 in the morning in a monitoring station when you are the only person in the room. You understand, I think, that I have been doing this work for 11 years. I have read unusual reports. I have coordinated responses to events that required patience and precision, and a willingness to accept that the world occasionally behaves in ways we do not expect. That is the purpose of the Continuity Office. That is why we exist. But there is a difference between a phenomenon that is strange and a phenomenon that is, I don't have the correct word. Coordinator Hargrove used the word negative on the communication channel at 1:15, and I think that is close. Not negative in the emotional sense, negative in the mathematical sense. Less than 0. A star that is not simply gone, but has been replaced by something less than the nothing that should remain. I wrote in my operational log at 1:16, the absence has weight. I am not certain that is accurate, but I have not been able to find better language. Continue standing by. At 1:20, Coordinator Hargrove issued the following directive to all stations on the dedicated channel. All stations. This is Coordinator Hargrove, Overnight Bureau. Effective immediately, the following protocols are in effect. 1. All observational sites are to maintain continuous monitoring of the 11 identified positions. Any change in status is to be reported immediately. 2. All automated tracking systems that currently show the 11 objects as present are to be isolated from network updates, but not corrected. Repeat. Do not attempt to correct the automated systems. Their current state is considered part of the anomaly and must be preserved for analysis. 3. No station is to issue any public communication regarding the 11 absences without authorization from the Coordination Bureau. 4. The Gray Hollow Observatory is designated as primary observational authority for the duration of this event. 5. I am formally requesting the activation of the Continuity Office Deep Field Monitoring Protocol. This has not been activated since 1988. I am making this request because the Halford Point Supplementary Report describes a phenomenon for which no existing observational protocol is adequate. Acknowledge and comply. 14 stations acknowledged within 6 minutes. Gray Hollow acknowledged and accepted primary authority at 1:23. The Deep Field Monitoring Protocol was acknowledged as requested at 1:24, but activation requires confirmation from the Continuity Office Central Directorate, which operates on daytime hours. The overnight duty registrar logged the request and indicated that confirmation could not be expected before 700. We were on our own until morning. At 1:33, I received a direct communication from operator Vasek at the Marchfeld West relay point, which is approximately 9 kilometers from my current position. Vasek is a signals technician, not an astronomer. He had been listening to the coordination channel as part of standard overnight monitoring. His communication was informal. I will paraphrase. He said he had gone outside to look. He said the sky was clear. He said he had been looking at the region of sky roughly corresponding to the Gray Hollow window, and that he could see obviously many stars, and that he could not tell with his unaided eyes which ones were supposed to be missing. But then he said something else. He said the sky in that region looked thinner. I asked him to clarify. He said he could not. He said it was not a visual observation in any measurable sense. He said the stars that were present in that region of sky looked correct, looked normal, looked like stars. But the space between them, the darkness between them looked, in his words, like it had less to it. I told him that was consistent with the Halford Point report, in a general sense. He said he knew. He said that was why he had called. He said he could see it without a telescope, now that he knew what to look for. I noted his communication in my operational log at 1:36. Then I went outside myself. I came back inside at 1:44. I am not going to describe what I observed because I am not a trained astronomical observer, and my impressions are not operationally relevant. I will say only that I understand what Vasek meant. I will continue with the verified reports. At 1:48, Grey Hollow Observatory submitted what they designated as their first formal status report under Primary Observational Authority. I will read relevant portions. Grey Hollow Primary Report 1. Time, 1:45. All 11 positions remain in confirmed absence status. Dark field regions at each position remain stable. No change in apparent size, depth, or distribution. We have conducted a comparative historical analysis using our archive of nightly census plates dating to 1931. The following is confirmed. All 11 objects have appeared in the Grey Hollow census consistently for the entire duration of the archive. The shortest continuous observational record among the 11 is 68 years. The longest is 94 years. These are not transient or variable objects. These are stable, fixed-position stellar sources that have been in the same location, at the same apparent magnitude, for the entirety of living observational memory. Additionally, we have cross-referenced the 11 objects against every known catalog and have identified a detail that we believe is significant. The 11 objects are not remarkable. They are not bright. They are not scientifically notable. They are not named. They do not feature in any published research that we can identify. They are ordinary mid-magnitude stars with no special characteristics that would explain why these specific 11 out of the approximately 300 objects in our standard window would be selectively affected. We have no hypothesis. At 1:57, Coordinator Hargrove reopened the communication channel for general discussion. This is unusual. The coordination channel is normally reserved for formal reports, but Hargrove indicated that the absence of any working hypothesis justified a broader exchange. I will summarize the discussion that followed. Fenimore Basin proposed that the phenomenon might be an advanced form of gravitational lensing, that some intervening mass was redirecting the light from the 11 objects away from Earth. This was discussed for approximately 4 minutes before Grey Hollow pointed out that gravitational lensing does not produce regions darker than the ambient background. Lensing redistributes light. It does not remove it and leave something less than nothing. Fenimore Basin acknowledged this and withdrew the proposal. Dunmore Ridge asked whether the automated tracking systems might be detecting something that human observers and direct imaging could not. Whether the stars were somehow still there, in a way that only the automated electromagnetic sensors could register. Hargrove replied that this was possible, but unverifiable, without understanding how the automated systems were receiving positive readings from positions that every other instrument showed as empty. Halford Point raised a question that no one answered. Are the dark field regions growing? There was a silence on the channel that lasted approximately 10 seconds. Grey Hollow responded, "We have not measured change because we have only been observing the dark field regions for approximately 90 minutes. We will begin positional and dimensional tracking immediately." At 2:03, Grey Hollow implemented what they described as a boundary watch, continuous monitoring of the apparent edges of all 11 dark field regions. Results were expected within the hour. I am now going to read from a communication that arrived at 2:08 from a source I did not expect. The Continuity Office Archival Division, which had completed its precedent search at 1:05, sent an additional message. not a precedent update. Something else. Archival Division Supplementary Communication, not responsive to original search request. This is independently submitted by Archivist Pell on personal authority. I have been listening to the coordination channel. I'm not authorized to participate in operational discussions, but I hold cataloging clearance for Level 3 archival materials, and I believe the following information is relevant. The restricted file identified in our earlier search, CO-OBS-1971-restricted, titled Sustained Non-Visibility Event Classification Pending, is, as stated, inaccessible without senior authorization. I cannot read it. I cannot summarize its contents. I do not know its contents. However, the cataloging metadata for this file is not restricted. The metadata is part of the general index and is accessible at my clearance level. The metadata includes the following fields. File created, March 1971. Originating site, Gray Hollow Observatory. Event duration, 14 months. Objects affected, 6. Classification status, pending. Last accessed, 1974. Reviewing authority, Dr. Lena Sadowski, Continuity Office Observational Standards Division. File cross-reference, CO-OBS-1971-. Restricted is cross-referenced with one other file. The cross-referenced file is CO-OBS-1882-F. CO-OBS-1882-F is not restricted. It is simply very old and has not been digitized. It is stored in the Gray Hollow Observatory Physical Archive, not the Continuity Office Central Archive. I do not have access to the physical document. The title of CO-OBS-1882-F is On the Periodical Vanishment of Fixed Stars in the Northern Window, with observations on the darkening of vacated positions. I believe this is relevant. 1882. I'm going to repeat the title of that file. On the Periodical Vanishment of Fixed Stars in the Northern Window, with observations on the darkening of vacated positions. 1882. The Gray Hollow Observatory has been watching stars disappear from the same region of sky, and noting that the positions become darker than they should be since at least 1882, and again in 1971. And now. Coordinator Hargrove's response on the channel at 2:11 was a single sentence. Gray Hollow, does your physical archive contain a file designated CO-OBS-1882-F? Gray Hollow responded at 2:13. We are checking. Our physical archive is extensive and not fully cataloged. Please stand by. That is where we are now. It is 2:14. I will continue broadcasting as information becomes available. The time is 02:27. Gray Hollow has not yet located the 1882 file. They have confirmed that their physical archive does contain materials from that era, but the storage system in the lower archive levels has not been reorganized since the 1960s. They have dispatched 2 staff members to search. In the interim, I have additional reports to communicate. At OH218, Gray Hollow submitted Primary Report 2, which contains the first results from the Boundary Watch. Gray Hollow Primary Report 2. Time: 2:15. Boundary Watch initiated at 02:03. 12 minutes of continuous monitoring of all 11 dark field regions. Result: no measurable change in position. Result: no measurable change in apparent angular diameter. However, we are reporting a change in depth. The term depth is used here provisionally. We do not have established terminology for what we are observing. What we mean is the following. The degree to which each dark field region is darker than the ambient background has increased since our first measurement at approximately 0.50. At 0.50, the average differential between the dark field regions and the ambient background was approximately 0.3 standard deviations below ambient. At 0215, the average differential is approximately 0.7 standard deviations below ambient. The rate of change appears steady. To be direct, the dark patches where the 11 stars used to be are getting darker. They are not spreading. They are not moving. They are deepening. We do not have a framework for interpreting this. Continuing boundary watch. At 2:22, the Aldrich Point Replacement Facility submitted a report that introduced something new. Aldrich Point to Coordination Channel. We are reporting an additional anomaly that may or may not be related. As previously noted, our automated tracking system shows all 11 objects as present nominal. We have been monitoring this discrepancy as directed and have not attempted to correct the system. At 0219, the system generated an automatic status log for the 11 objects. This is part of its normal hourly cycle. The log entry for each object includes standard fields: designation, position, magnitude, spectral class, and a timestamp. The timestamps are wrong. The system records the time of each observation in coordinated network time. The timestamps on all 11 entries in the 0219 log read 1400. It is currently 0222. 1400 has not occurred yet today. Or, depending on your interpretation, 1400 occurred approximately 12 hours ago. We have checked the system clock. It is correct. The timestamp anomaly is confined to these 11 entries. All other entries in the same log carry the correct timestamp. We are unsure how to interpret this and are logging it for the record. I sat with that for longer than I should have before continuing my duties. The automated systems think the stars are still there. And the automated systems think it is a time that either hasn't happened yet or happened 12 hours ago. I added the following entry to my operational log at 0224. The instruments and the observers are not seeing different things. They are seeing different times. I don't know if that is correct. It is what occurred to me. The time is 2:41. Two developments. First, Gray Hollow's archive team has located a storage container in the lower archive that bears a label consistent with the 1882 file designation. The container is sealed and appears to have been undisturbed for a considerable period. They are opening it now. Second, at 0235, Dunmore Ridge submitted a report that I need to read carefully. Dunmore Ridge to Coordination Channel. We have been conducting continuous wide-field observation as part of our monitoring obligations. At 0233, Observer Tannen noted a visual phenomenon that does not appear in our instrumentation. Observer Tannen reports that when viewing the 11 dark field positions as a group, not individually, but as a collective pattern, they appear to be arranged in a familiar configuration. Tannen initially declined to elaborate, stating that the observation was subjective and not instrumentally verifiable. At the request of this station's senior observer, Tannen provided the following description. If you look at them all at once, not focusing on any single one, the pattern they make across the sky looks like it could be a constellation, not a recognized one. But the spacing, the distribution, it looks deliberate. It looks like something you would draw a line between. We want to emphasize that this is a subjective visual impression from a single observer. However, Tannen has been with this station for 23 years and does not make casual observational claims. We have transmitted the precise coordinates of all 11 positions to Gray Hollow for geometric analysis. At 2:38, Coordinator Hargrove asked Gray Hollow to prioritize the geometric analysis. Gray Hollow acknowledged. I will share results when they are available. Stand by. I am receiving something from Gray Hollow now. The time is 0249. This is the archive report. Gray Hollow's team has opened the container. Gray Hollow Archive Recovery Preliminary. File CO-OBS-1882-F has been located and partially examined. The document is handwritten, in good condition, and consists of 14 pages of observational notes and 2 pages of hand-drawn charts. The author is identified as R.A. Thornycroft, who was, according to our historical records, the principal observer at Gray Hollow from 1874 to 1903. We are reading the document now. A full transcription will follow when complete. We are providing immediate excerpts of apparent relevance. Page 1. Opening paragraph. I write to establish a record of what I have observed over the preceding 4 months, namely the disappearance of certain fixed stars from the northern window and the subsequent darkening of their former stations. I have delayed this writing in the hope that the stars would return, as they have done before. They have not. It is my duty to set down what I have seen, for the benefit of those who may observe the same in years to come. Page 3. Middle section. The darkening is not uniform. Certain vacated positions grow dark more swiftly than others. I have observed that the rate of darkening corresponds roughly to the original brightness of the lost star. The brighter the star that was, the deeper the dark that remains. I do not explain this. I offer the observation. Page 6, upper section. I have counted 11 stars lost since the beginning of the vanishment. The number may have increased since my last observation, but cloud cover has prevented verification for 9 nights. 11. Page 9. And we are reading this exactly as written. I have consulted such charts and almanacs as are available to me, and have determined that the vanished stars, when considered as a group, form a figure. I do not recognize it. It is not among the established constellations. I have drawn it as accurately as my instruments allow. The figure resembles, and I am aware of the peculiarity of this comparison. A hand. A hand. Page 11. The darkening reached its greatest depth on the 14th of November. I describe this with the understanding that I will not be believed. On that night, the vacated positions were visible to the unaided eye as points of darkness against the sky. Not as absences, as presences. Dark points, as though someone had placed drops of ink upon the firmament. Page 13. On the morning of the 15th of November, all 11 stars had returned. They were at their usual positions, their usual magnitudes, their usual character. I checked and rechecked. They were there. The darkness was gone. I do not know where they went. I do not know what the darkness was. I believe they will go again. End of recovered excerpts. Full transcription in progress. 1882. 11 stars. A hand. And they came back. I need to... The Continuity Office procedure for an event with confirmed historical recurrence is to classify the event as a cyclical anomaly and initiate long-term monitoring. That is the procedure. I know the procedure. I am stating the procedure because the procedure is what I have. The procedure does not address the part about the hand. Coordinator Hargrove has not spoken on the channel since the archive report was read. I can see his channel indicator is active. He is listening. He has not spoken. Stand by. The time is 3:06. Hargrove has spoken. At 3:02, Coordinator Hargrove issued the following on the dedicated channel. All stations. This is Hargrove. I am issuing a revised operational framework for the duration of this event. Previous classifications are suspended. The event is now designated as a cyclical stellar absence with progressive darkening CSAPD. Designation is provisional and subject to revision. Based on the 1882 document, the 1971 restricted file which we still cannot access, and current observations, The following working assumptions are authorized for operational purposes. These are not conclusions. They are working assumptions. 1. The event has occurred before, at least twice, 1882 and 1971. 2. The event involves the selective disappearance of stars within a specific region of sky. 3. The number 11 may or may not be consistent across occurrences. The 1882 document confirms 11. The 1971 file metadata states 6. Current event, 11. 4. The vacated positions undergo progressive darkening that intensifies over time. 5. Based on the 1882 account, the event may be self-resolving. Stars returned after a period of approximately 4 months. 6. The geometric arrangement of the absent stars may form a recognizable pattern. Gray Hollow is to expedite the geometric analysis. 7. The automated tracking anomaly and the timestamp discrepancy at Aldrich Point remain unexplained and may represent a secondary phenomenon. I'm requesting that all stations shift from anomaly detection posture to long-term monitoring posture. This may not be an emergency. It may be a recurrence. Our task now is to observe it more carefully than anyone has before. Hargrove out. At 3:09, Gray Hollow delivered the preliminary results of the geometric analysis. I need to read this with care. Gray Hollow to coordination channel. Geometric analysis of 11 absence positions. Preliminary result. We plotted all 11 positions on a standard projection. We compared the resulting pattern against known constellation figures, historical asterisms, and common geometric forms. No match was found against any catalogued astronomical pattern. We then compared the pattern against the hand-drawn chart included in the 1882 Thornycroft document. We have scanned and digitized Thornycroft's chart and overlaid it against our current positional data. The match is exact. The 11 stars absent tonight are the same 11 stars that vanished in 1882. The pattern, the figure, is the same. Thornycroft described it as a hand. We would describe it differently. We would describe it as, and we are aware of how this sounds, 5 points arranged at the ends of 5 radiating lines that converge at a central region containing 6 clustered points. The 5 outer points could be interpreted as fingertips. The central cluster could be interpreted as a palm. Or it could be interpreted differently. We are including Thornycroft's description for completeness, but want to emphasize that pattern recognition of this kind is subjective and prone to anthropomorphic projection. Nevertheless, the geometry is not random. The 11 points are arranged with a regularity that is statistically unlikely to have occurred by chance. We calculated the probability that 11 randomly selected stars in our window would produce this degree of bilateral symmetry and radial regularity. The probability is small. Our mathematician used the word negligible. We are transmitting the chart to all stations. I received the chart at 3:13. I have it in front of me now. I am not going to describe it in detail, because Gray Hollow is correct that pattern recognition is subjective, and I do not want my interpretation to replace yours. But I will tell you this. I have been looking at the chart for several minutes, and the word that comes to my mind is not hand. The word that comes to my mind is reaching. The time is 03:28. I have several updates to communicate. At 03:18, Gray Hollow submitted Primary Report 3, containing the latest depth measurements. The 11 dark field regions continue deepening at a steady rate. Average differential is now 1.1 standard deviations below ambient background. Rate of change has not accelerated. Projected time to visual threshold darkness, meaning the point at which the dark field regions would be visible to the unaided eye, as described in Thornycroft's 1882 account, is approximately 72 hours at the current rate. 3 days. At 0321, the Aldrich Point Replacement Facility submitted another automated tracking update. Aldrich Point reporting. Our automated system has generated another hourly log. The timestamps on all 11 stellar entries now read 2200. The previous anomalous timestamp was 1400. The system clock remains correct. The timestamps on all other entries remain correct. Only the 11 affected objects carry the incorrect timestamp. The timestamps appear to be advancing from 1400 to 2200 by 8 hours in one hourly cycle. If this is a pattern, the next cycle would show 0600. 0600, which is still approximately 3 hours in the future. I asked Coordinator Hargrove whether the advancing timestamps could indicate something predictive, whether the system was, in some sense, tracking ahead. He told me he did not know. He asked Aldrich Point to continue monitoring and to report the next hourly timestamp the moment it appeared. At 3:24, Archivist Pell from the Archival Division sent another message. Archivist Pell, Archival Division. I have continued examining the cataloging metadata for the restricted 1971 file. I have found an additional metadata field that I previously overlooked. The field is labeled Event Status. For most historical files, this field contains one of several standard values: resolved, unresolved, ongoing, or dormant. The value in this field for CO-OBS-1 971-RE-STRICTED is incomplete. I have never seen this value before. It is not among the standard options. I do not know when it was entered or by whom. Incomplete. The 1882 event lasted 4 months and resolved. The stars came back. The 1971 event lasted 14 months, and someone, Dr. Lena Sadowski, or someone with access, classified it as incomplete. Not unresolved, not dormant. Incomplete. The time is 3:40. I want to tell you about a conversation that occurred on the coordination channel at 0331 that was not a formal report. It was an exchange between Observer Tannen at Dunmore Ridge and the senior observer at Grey Hollow, whose name is Callister. Tannen asked Callister whether anyone at Grey Hollow had gone outside and simply looked up at the sky. Callister said yes. Several staff had gone to the observation terrace. Tannen asked what they saw. Callister said the 11 absences were not visible to the unaided eye. Not yet. The dark field regions were still below visual threshold. Then Tannen asked a different question. Tannen asked, "Does the sky in the window region feel different to you? Not the absences. The sky itself." There was a silence on the channel. Callister said, "Yes." Tannen said, "Can you describe it?" Callister said, "No." Tannen said, "It feels like something is looking back." There was another silence. Callister said, "I was going to say it feels like something is reaching down." Coordinator Hargrove interrupted and stated that subjective impressions, while noted, should not be communicated on the operational channel. Both observers acknowledged, but I wrote it down, and I am telling you now. The time is 3:58. I am going to report what happened at 3:47, and I am going to do it carefully. At 3:47, the Aldrich Point Replacement Facility reported the next automated tracking timestamp. The timestamps on the 11 stellar entries read 4:12, not 6 o'clock as projected. 4:12. 4:12 is 14 minutes from now. Coordinator Hargrove immediately asked Aldrich Point to confirm. They confirmed. The timestamps read 4:12. Hargrove then asked Grey Hollow whether anything was expected to happen at 0412, any scheduled observation, any astronomical event, any system cycle. Grey Hollow checked and reported, nothing scheduled. Hargrove asked all stations to maintain heightened monitoring through 0412 and to report any change in the 11 positions, the dark field regions, or any other observable parameter. We are now at 0358, 14 minutes. I'm going to remain on the broadcast. The time is 4:03. Nothing has changed. All 11 dark field positions remain stable. Depth continues increasing at the established rate. No visual threshold events reported. 9 minutes. The time is 4:08. Fenimore Basin reports a minor fluctuation in their spectrographic readings at 2 of the 11 positions. They describe it as a brief brightening in the subvisible spectrum, lasting less than 1 second. They are attempting to verify whether it recurs. 4 minutes. The time is 0411. 1 minute. All stations are reporting stable observations. No change. Gray Hollow has all instruments trained on the 11 positions. Aldrich Point is monitoring the automated tracking system for the next timestamp update. Fenimore Basin has not observed a recurrence of the spectrographic fluctuation. I am watching the clock. The time is 4:12. Gray Hollow is reporting. Stand by. At 4:12. Precisely at 4:12. All 11 dark field regions brightened. Not to stellar magnitudes, not to previous levels. They brightened by a measurable degree. Gray Hollow reports a reduction in the darkness, differential from 1.2 standard deviations below ambient to 0.4 standard deviations below ambient. The dark field regions did not vanish. The stars did not return, but the darkness retreated, partially, temporarily. Because Gray Hollow is already reporting that the deepening has resumed. The momentary brightening lasted approximately 90 seconds, and the dark field regions are now returning to their previous depth. The rate of re-deepening is faster than the original darkening. Gray Hollow estimates that they will return to 1.2 standard deviations within 30 minutes and continue beyond. Something happened at 0412, something the automated systems at Aldrich Point expected, something that partially reversed the darkening for 90 seconds. And now the darkening is continuing, faster. I am entering this in my operational log as 0412 event partial brightening, temporary, now reversed with acceleration. The time is 0424. New report from Aldrich Point. Aldrich Point to coordination channel. Automated tracking system hourly log has cycled. New timestamps on the 11 stellar entries read, complete. Not a time, a word, complete. Hargrove asked Aldrich Point to verify. Aldrich Point verified. The timestamp field for all 11 entries now contains the text string complete. The system is not designed to accept text in a timestamp field. It should be numerically constrained. The value should not be possible. Hargrove asked whether the system had generated any error codes or fault indicators. Aldrich Point checked. No error codes. No fault indicators. The system considers the entry valid. I need to decide what to communicate next. I have 2 things. I'm going to present them in the order that makes the most sense, not the order in which they arrived. First, at 4:19, Gray Hollow reported that the rate of re-deepening after the 4:12 brightening is not slowing. It is increasing. Their revised projection for visual threshold darkness is no longer 72 hours. It is approximately 11 hours. By this evening, anyone who looks up at the night sky will be able to see the 11 dark points with their unaided eyes. Second, at 4:21, archivist Pell, who has been working through the night, and I am grateful for it, sent a final communication. Archivist Pell, Archival Division, final supplementary communication. I have exhausted all metadata available to me for the 1971 restricted file. I cannot access its contents. However, I have conducted one additional search. I looked for any file in the General Index that references Dr. Lena Sadowski, the reviewing authority for the 1971 event. I found one, CO-personnel-1974-LS. This is a standard personnel file notation. It is not restricted. The notation reads, Dr. Lena Sadowski, Observational Standards Division, retired from service, effective November 1974. Reason, personal request. Exit interview notes. Dr. Sadowski requested that her retirement be recorded with the following annotation. And I am reading this exactly. I am unwilling to be present for the completion. I am unwilling to be present for the completion. There is no additional context. There are no additional records associated with Dr. Sadowski in the General Index. I have nothing else to contribute tonight. Pell out. I am going to lay out what we know. 1882. 11 stars vanish. The positions darken. A pattern forms. After 4 months, the stars return. Thornycroft notes the event and hopes others will observe what follows. 1971. 6 stars vanish. Event lasts 14 months. File is restricted. Classified as incomplete. The reviewing authority retires from service and states she is unwilling to be present for the completion. Tonight, 11 stars vanish. Same 11 as 1882. Positions darken. Automated systems claim the stars are still there, with timestamps that advance, then resolve to the word complete. A momentary brightening occurs at a time the automated system predicted, then reverses with acceleration. The 1882 event resolved. The stars came back. The 1971 event was classified as incomplete. An event that started in 1882 partially recurred in 1971, with fewer stars, an incomplete classification, and has now recurred in full. With the same 11, in the same pattern. And the darkness is accelerating. Dr. Sadowski did not say she was unwilling to be present for the next event. She said she was unwilling to be present for the completion. As though the 1882 event and the 1971 event were not separate events. As though they were phases. As though the process that Thornycroft observed in 1882, 11 stars going dark, forming the shape of a reaching hand, began something. And the 1971 event continued something. And whatever is happening now is the... I am not going to finish that sentence. Coordinator Hargrove has not spoken in 18 minutes. I have checked his channel indicator. It is still active. The time is 4:40. Hargrove has spoken. All stations. This is Coordinator Hargrove. I am issuing the following directives. 1. The event designation is revised. New designation. Recurrent stellar absence event active phase. 2. All stations are to prepare for the possibility that the dark field regions will reach visual threshold within 12 hours. Public visibility protocols should be reviewed. The Continuity Office Public Information Division will be contacted at 08700 with a recommended advisory. 3. I am requesting that the Continuity Office Central Directorate expedite access to file CO-OBS-1971-restricted. This request is no longer procedural. It is operational. 4. All observational data from tonight is to be preserved under the highest archival priority. Every measurement, every log, every communication on this channel, all of it. 5. I am adding a personal note to the operational record, which I am authorized to do under Section 14 of the Overnight Coordination Manual. The note is as follows. Something that began in 1882 is continuing tonight. It may have been interrupted in 1971, or it may have progressed partially in 1971. The current event has every characteristic of a final phase. I do not know what the completion entails. The 1882 account describes the darkness becoming visible to the unaided eye before resolution. If resolution follows the same pattern, the stars will return, and the event will end. But the 1882 event and the current event differ in one critical respect. The darkening in 1882 took 4 months to reach visual threshold. Tonight, it will reach visual threshold in 11 hours. Whatever is happening faster. And the only person who understood what the completion means left her position 52 years ago because she did not want to see it. I do not know what to do with that information, but I am entering it into the record because someone should. Hargrove out. The time is 04:51. I have one final report to communicate before this broadcast enters its holding pattern pending the 0700 coordination update. At 04:44, Gray Hollow submitted Primary Report 4. Gray Hollow Primary Report 4. Time, 4:42. Dark field depth has now reached 1.8 standard deviations below ambient. Rate of deepening continues to accelerate. Revised visual threshold projection, 9 to 10 hours. The regions are now detectable in short exposure imaging without magnification. Additionally, we have completed the full transcription of the Thornycroft 1882 document. The final page, page 14, contains a passage that was not included in our earlier excerpts because we initially believed it to be personal commentary outside the scope of observational data. We are including it now because we believe it is relevant. Thornycroft's final paragraph, page 14. A note for those who find this record. I have described the vanishment as lasting 4 months and resolving. This is true. The stars returned. The darkness lifted. But I wish to add an observation that I have hesitated to include, as it concerns not the sky, but myself. On the morning the stars returned, November 15th, I went to the observatory terrace and looked up at the sky with great relief. The 11 stars were in their places. Everything was as it had been. But I noticed that my hands were shaking, and I noticed that I did not feel relieved. I felt as though something had let go, not as though something had ended, as though something that had been holding on, something immeasurably far above me, reaching down through a depth I cannot describe, had released its grip. Briefly, not permanently. I do not believe the stars came back, because the event concluded. I believe the stars came back, because it was not yet time. I pray that those who read this will observe more carefully than I was able, and will understand what I could not. What is it reaching for? That is the end of the Thornycroft document. It is 4:51. The dark field regions are deepening. They will be visible tonight. Anyone who looks up at the northern sky will see them 11 points of darkness, arranged in the shape of something reaching down. The automated systems say the process is complete. A woman who studied the 1971 event left her career rather than see what comes next. A man who watched the 1882 event spent his final written words asking a question that no one has answered in 144 years. What is it reaching for? I am Operator Ellison. This is the residual relay, Marchfeld Station, Channel 4. The broadcast will continue on this frequency. Monitoring is ongoing. The continuity office has been notified at all levels. The sky is still above us. The stars, most of them, are still in their places. And 11 points of darkness are growing deeper in a shape that looks like a hand. I'm not going to say the word that comes after reaching. You already know it. This broadcast will resume at 700 or upon receipt of significant operational development. Maintain your frequency. Do not adjust your equipment. Archival note, appended by unknown hand. The 11 stars returned on the morning of the 14th day. All stations confirmed. All dark field regions resolved. Automated tracking systems resumed normal timestamps. The event has been classified as resolved. Except, the Gray Hollow nightly census submitted that evening contained a new annotation. The 11 stars are back, and there are now 12 dark field positions that were not there before.